Let's talk causation versus correlation, because a lot of people have only a second grade understanding of science and they don't seem to understand these concepts. So let's discuss how we determine causality. So this is Bradford Hill's criteria for causality. And the first thing you'll notice is that the two things have to be correlated together. You can't claim causality unless you have an association between one variable and the other. Because if one variable is not associated with the other, you can't make the claim that one causes the other. In other words, correlation is necessary for causation. Now, the reason that we shy away from making causal arguments is that we often can't prove this one, temporality, because we're often working with data sets that are in one point in time, so they're cross-sectional. This means that we can only talk about what was happening at the time that those data was drawn. So when we talk about temporality, we need to know that X precedes Y in order to determine causality. Now, that comment was in response to a comment that I made talking about how the number of people who died due to mass shootings was reduced during the 1994 to 2004 semi-automatic weapons ban. Now, for those who don't know, the semi-automatic weapons ban, or the 1994 federal assault weapons ban as it's actually called, was in place between 1994 and 2004. And what we know is that while the ban was in place, there were fewer mass shootings. We also know that there were fewer fatalities related to mass shootings while the ban was in place. So before the ban went into place, there were 7.2 fatalities per incident. Then during the ban, it was 5.3. And following the end of the ban, it jumped to 25 up until 2017. And it's closer to 40-50 today. And one of the major reasons that it is so much higher is because of shootings like Las Vegas that drove that death toll way up. Shootings that used an assault rifle. And that's shown in the research as well. And what we've also seen is that since the ban has ended, we have seen a steep increase in mass shooting deaths and incidences. Now, most people who study firearms research will say that, there could be other factors that led to the decline other than the ban. And so they will be hesitant to make the argument that it is causal. But based on the way that we determine causality, we actually can, because first of all, we have temporality. We have what happened before the ban went into place, what happened while the ban was in place, and what happened immediately after the ban ended, which shows that the ban significantly reduced incidences, numbers, and overall fatalities. It also decreased crimes using these weapons. And a lot of that had to do with the cost of those guns after the ban went into effect. Collectors markets caused these guns to skyrocket in value, and people just couldn't afford them. So criminals could not get them. They were less accessible to them, so they were not being used in crime. And this is something that we see in countries that have total bans on these types of weapons, like Australia, where an AR-15 sells for about $30,000 US on the black market. And that's one of the reasons why gun crime has almost completely disappeared in those countries. The criminals just can't afford them. But strength of the association and temporality are not the only criteria that the semi-automatic weapons ban meets for causality. It also meets plausibility. It makes complete sense that banning certain guns would reduce violence with those guns, because if you don't have the gun, you can't kill someone with the gun. And that's not the only criteria that this still manages to meet in order to prove causation. It also meets something called the consistency of the data criteria. Let's talk about that. Consistency of the data says that if you draw samples from random time periods across random groups and you get the same result over and over and over across those times and spaces, then that is an argument for causality. And the data has been very consistent. States with stricter laws have fewer gun homicides, fewer gun suicides, fewer mass shootings, and fewer gun accidental deaths. They also have lower gun crime. In fact, if we go back and we look at the publicly available data, which starts in the year 2000 and goes all the way up until 2023, what we find is that states with stricter laws have lower rates of gun mortality, with the best states being states like Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Hawaii, Connecticut, California, and Minnesota and New Hampshire. Conversely, states with the loosest regulation and allow more gun ownership have the highest rates of gun mortality in the United States, with the worst offenders being Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, New Mexico, Alaska, Tennessee, Arkansas, Wyoming, and Montana. So while I was not making a causal argument in that thread, we actually could based on the Bradford-Hills guidelines for causal criteria because the semi-automatic weapons ban meets most of them.